Her scream cut through the restaurant like a knife, and every head turned just in time to see the CEO's girlfriend grab the young waitress by the shoulder and rip her dress straight down the back. Fabric tore, the room gasped, and the girl froze in shock, clutching herself as laughter echoed from the woman who did it. "Know your place, waitress," the girlfriend hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. But before her cruel smile could settle, a deep, controlled voice rose from the center table, a voice that made her entire body stiffen. "That," he said, standing up slowly, "is not a waitress. And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The room fell silent, breaths held, eyes locked on him as he stepped toward the trembling girl and toward the woman who had just humiliated her. No one knew the truth yet. No one knew who the waitress really was. But they were about to find out. The restaurant wasn't just any restaurant. It was the kind of elegant, glass-walled place where CEOs held deals, millionaires booked private tables, and every waiter moved like a trained performer. Among them was Mira, the quiet waitress everyone noticed but never truly saw. She worked with a gentle smile that tried to hide how tired she was, how heavy her life had become. Every shift was a test of her patience. But she pushed through because she believed in one thing. Dignity didn't depend on money. But there was one person who hated her without reason: Lana, the CEO's glamorous girlfriend who treated the restaurant like her kingdom. She strutted around in designer heels, barking orders at the staff, convinced everyone should bow to her. And for some reason, Mira's calmness, her kindness, her quiet confidence, it infuriated her. Lana saw her as competition even when Mira wasn't trying to compete with anyone. On the nights when the city's elite gathered, Lana loved to perform. She would make snide comments about Mira's clothes, whisper insults meant to teach her place, and smirk when Mira simply bowed her head and continued working. But what no one noticed was the man who watched every interaction closely: Adrian Hale. A powerful billionaire invited that night as the CEO's special guest. From his table, his sharp eyes followed every word, every look, every hint of tension. He wasn't the type to intervene without understanding the full story. But he could see clearly that Lana's cruelty wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern, and tonight, he sensed, it was about to explode into something far worse. What neither Mira nor Lana knew was this: Adrian had come here with a secret, and Myra was at the center of it. The evening grew louder as more guests arrived. But Myra moved through the noise with her usual grace, carrying trays stacked with glasses and weaving between tables like she'd memorized every inch of the floor. She tried to ignore the sting of Lana's earlier insults, but the woman wasn't done. Lana watched her from across the room with narrowed eyes, whispering to the CEO beside her, her lips curling into a cruel smile every time Mira passed. It wasn't jealousy alone. It was the thrill of having power over someone she believed couldn't fight back. Mira kept her head down. She needed this job. Her rent was due, her younger brother was waiting at home for dinner, and every paycheck mattered. Even when Lana accidentally knocked a glass off the table, sending it crashing at Mira's feet, Mira simply knelt and cleaned it. "Clumsy," Lana muttered. Mira didn't respond. She couldn't afford to stop Adrian watch the entire scene unfold from his table. His fingers tapped the table lightly, a habit he had when he was restraining himself from reacting too soon. He had come here to observe the CEO for a potential partnership, but now something else held his attention. There was something about Mira, the familiar calm in her movements, the quiet resilience, the way she swallowed pain but never hostility. He had seen that look before, years ago, in a very different place. When the CEO stepped away to take a call, Lana seized her moment. She strutted toward Myra, heels clicking like warning shots. "Hey," she snapped. "You missed a spot." She pointed to the clean floor just to humiliate her. Mira looked up, tired but steady. "I cleaned it," she said softly. Lana scoffed. "And now you're talking back. Who do you think you are?" Mira lowered her gaze again, knowing it was useless to argue, and began wiping the spotless floor just to diffuse the situation. Guests were starting to notice. Whispers moved around the room, but no one dared step in. Power had a way of silencing people. All except one. Adrian stood quietly from his chair, his eyes tracking Lana like he was studying a problem he already knew the solution to. But he didn't step in yet. Not until he understood exactly how far Lana would go. Mira moved to the bar to prepare drinks, and Lana followed her like a shadow. "Tell me something," Lana said loudly, just enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Do you enjoy serving people like me? Or do you dream about something bigger, something unrealistic for someone at your level?" Myra didn't break. "I'm just doing my job," she said, her voice steady but strained. Lana leaned closer. "Exactly. Your job. So stay in it." Adrian's jaw tightened. The shift dragged on, tension building with every step Myra took. She tried to stay out of Lana's path, but it was impossible. Lana cornered her again when Mira brought a tray of drinks to Adrian's table. "You're too slow," she hissed, and deliberately bumped Mira's arm. The tray tilted. Glasses fell, one shattered. The sound cracked through the restaurant like lightning. Mira gasped as cold liquid splashed down her arm. She immediately bent to collect the pieces, her hands trembling. Lana stepped back with exaggerated disgust. "Unbelievable. Can't even carry a tray." That was the moment the CEO returned, saw the mess, and instead of questioning Lana, he snapped at Mira. "We can't hire people with no coordination. Clean this up and go to the back." Mira nodded, humiliated but silent, and Adrian. He finally rose from his seat, slow, controlled. His decision was made. He had seen enough tonight. The truth would come out whether Lana was ready or not. Mira hurried toward the back hallway, her hands shaking as she wiped the spilled drink from her arms. She could feel the sting behind her eyes, but she refused to cry where anyone could see. Not here. Not in front of people who already thought she was small. She rounded the corner, hoping for just one quiet breath, but Lana wasn't done. The clicking of expensive heels followed her like a predator on the hunt. "Mira." Lana dragged her voice mockingly as she stepped into the hallway. "Running away now? Typical." Myra stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm just doing what your boyfriend said," she replied softly. Lana scoffed and stepped closer, invading her space. "You know, I could get you fired tonight. One word, and you're gone." Mira stared at the floor. "I don't want trouble." "Oh, but you already caused it," Lana sneered, circling her like she owned the air around her. "You think being pretty and quiet makes you special? You think someone like Adrian Hale would even look at you?" Myra froze. She hadn't realized Adrian was still in the hallway, silently approaching from behind. Lana didn't notice him, yet she was too focused on tearing Mira apart. "You're nothing," Lana spat. "A poor little waitress pretending she belongs in nice places. And that dress." She reached out, fingers brushing the fabric. "It's cheap. Like you." Mira stepped back instinctively. But Lana grabbed the back of her dress with a vicious jerk. Rip! The sound echoed through the hallway like thunder. Myra gasped, spinning around, clutching the torn fabric to her chest, her face pale with shock and shame. Lana laughed a sharp, cruel sound. "There, now your outfit matches your status." That was the exact second she heard a voice behind her. A voice cold enough to freeze the hallway. Lana whipped around. Adrian Hale stood there, eyes dark, jaw set, every inch of him radiating controlled anger. "Adrian," she stuttered, instantly changing her expression, softening her voice like she hadn't just humiliated a woman for fun. This girl was being rude. I was only stop. His tone sliced through her excuses. Lana's mouth closed. Adrian stepped past her, moving directly to Myra, who was holding her torn dress tightly, trying not to fall apart. His voice softened. "Are you hurt?" Myra shook her head, though tears clung to her lashes. "I'm fine, sir." He looked at the dress, at her trembling hands, then back at Lana. The air felt heavier with every second. "You think she's a waitress?" he said quietly. Lana blinked. "Well, she is." Adrian's eyes hardened. "No, she isn't." The hallway fell silent. "She is my guest," he said, voice steady, "and you assaulted her." Lana's face drained of color. "Guest? What do you mean guest? She works here." Adrian stepped closer to her, his voice low and sharp. "You think you know everything because you walk around with a designer bag and an attitude. But you have no idea who she really is." He turned slightly, his gaze shifting back to Myra gentler. "Now, Myra is here because I asked her to be. She's not staff. She's not beneath anyone. And your behavior tonight is inexcusable." Lana's breath hitched. "Adrian, you're defending her over me." "I'm defending a human being you just tried to destroy for amusement." The words hit like a slap. Lana shook her head slowly, disbelief turning into panic. "You're joking, right?" But Adrian Hale wasn't joking. Everything was about to change. The hallway felt too small for the storm that had just formed inside it. Lana stood frozen, staring at Adrian like she didn't recognize the man she had been proudly clinging to all night. Around them, the faint murmur of guests leaked through the walls. But in this narrow space, every heartbeat felt sharp and loud. Myra's hands trembled as she held the torn dress together, her eyes darting downward, trying to make herself invisible. But Adrian's voice pulled all attention back to her. "Myra," he said gently, "look at me." She hesitated, then lifted her eyes. There was no judgment in his expression, only concern. A strange warmth flickered in her chest, something she hadn't felt from anyone powerful in a long time. Respect. Adrian stepped, sighed just enough to give her room to breathe. "You don't deserve this. Not tonight, not ever." Myra swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. I'm okay. I just want to go back to work." But Adrian shook his head firmly. "You're not going anywhere near a job after being attacked." His gaze moved to Lana again, colder now, sharper. This wasn't an accident. It was cruelty. Lana's lips quivered. "Adrian, please. You're blowing this out of proportion." She's clearly trying to play victim. Play victim. Adrian repeated slowly, disbelief dripping from each word. "Lana, I watched you humiliate her for an hour straight." Lana flinched, her spine tightening. "Okay, maybe I was harsh. But I didn't know she was your guest, and that makes it acceptable." Adrian asked. If she were a waitress, would ripping her dress be fine? The question hit her like a punch. She opened her mouth, then closed it again when no excuse came out. Adrian stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. "Tell me, Lana, if I had torn a server's clothes just to embarrass them, would you still call it a misunderstanding?" She paled. "No." "Exactly." His voice softened, but only in tone, not in warmth. "The title someone holds doesn't change their worth. You treat everyone as if they're beneath you." Myra's heart thudded. No one had ever defended her like this. Not with this level of conviction. She felt a painful mixture of relief and fear because she knew what often followed moments like these. People like Lana didn't let humiliation go unpunished. "You're making a mistake," Lana whispered angrily. "She's playing innocent. Girls like her enough." Adrian cut sharply. Lana fell silent, her eyes filling with fiery resentment. But beneath that, there was fear. Genuine fear. Because she could see it now. Adrian wasn't simply angry. He was done. Myra took a small step back. "Please. Don't fight because of me," she whispered, trying to shrink the conflict that had spiraled around her. But Adrian turned to her, shaking his head. "This isn't your fault. You did nothing wrong." Then his gaze softened even more. "And, for the record, you were invited here tonight because you matter more than you think." Myra blinked, confused. "Invited? Why?" Lana's head snapped toward him. "What does that mean?" she demanded. Adrian didn't answer her. His eyes remained on Myra, studying the uncertainty in her face. "There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Lana's breath caught. "Adrian, what are you talking about?" He didn't look at her. He only looked at Myra, and the hallway felt charged with a new tension. One that threatened to break everything apart. The words hung in the air like a fragile promise. Dra's heart raced, unsure if she was ready for what was about to be revealed. Adrian's gaze softened, but there was an unmistakable gravity in his voice that demanded attention. "Myra, you've endured humiliation and ridicule far too long. Tonight, I want you to know the truth. You are not here by accident. You are here because of who you are, because of what you are capable of." Myra blinked, trying to process. I don't understand, sir. I'm just a waitress, that's all." Adrian shook his head, a faint, almost sad smile touching his lips. "You are far more than that. I invited you here because I've been watching you, your courage, your dignity under pressure. And I needed someone I could trust, someone who handles challenges not with anger, but with strength. That's why you're here tonight." Myra's chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to argue that she didn't deserve such attention, but Adrian's presence silenced all doubt. For the first time in years, she felt seen not as a server, not as someone disposable, but as a human being of value. Lana, meanwhile, stood frozen, her arrogance drained and replaced with something far darker. Fear. Fear of the consequences. Fear of Adrian's judgment. Fear of a truth she hadn't anticipated. I didn't know," she started, but her words faltered under his piercing stare. "This isn't about ignorance, Lana," Adrian said evenly. "This is about respect. Something you clearly lack." Lana's face paled, her designer mask of confidence slipping. She opened her mouth, but no argument came. The power she thought she held evaporated instantly. Adrian turned back to Myra. "You don't have to endure people like her. Not tonight, not ever again." Myra felt a lump rise in her throat. Thank you," she whispered, voice barely audible. The tension in her body began to ease, replaced by a quiet, powerful relief. She straightened, holding her head high for the first time that night. Adrian's hand briefly touched her shoulder, a grounding reassurance. "Tonight, you showed grace under fire. That's why you're here. And that's why you will never be diminished by anyone's cruelty again." Lana's lips pressed into a thin line, realizing that the rules had changed. The crowd, which had watched in suspense, now murmured approval, witnessing the reversal of power. It was a silent lesson to everyone in the room. Arrogance and cruelty had consequences. Myra's eyes scanned the room, taking in every face, every subtle nod of respect from those who had previously ignored her. The humiliation she had endured felt distant now, almost surreal. Her pain had transformed into recognition and newfound strength. Adrian's presence radiated authority, but not dominance. He didn't need to shout or threaten. His words alone reshaped the narrative, giving Myra a position of dignity she had never claimed before. Lana's fury simmered, but there was nothing she could do. The spotlight had shifted, the hierarchy overturned. And the girl she had mocked now stood protected and respected. Mira's lips curved into a small, determined smile. Tonight had been cruel. Yes, but it had also unveiled the truth. Strength, resilience, and integrity could not be destroyed by ridicule. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she was truly seen and that her life was about to change forever. The night wasn't over, and neither was the tension. Just as Mira thought she could breathe, Lana, humiliated but not defeated, took a sharp step forward, her designer heels clicking like gunshots on the polished floor. "You think this ends tonight?" she hissed, eyes blazing. "You think I'll let you make a fool out of me in front of everyone?" Adrian's gaze never wavered, calm, controlled, unshakable. "You've already made your choice, Lana. And that choice has consequences," he said, voice steady but carrying the weight of authority that could crush her. Arrogance without lifting a finger. Lana's breath hitched. She hadn't anticipated resistance this strong, not from Adrian, not from Mira. "You don't understand," she began, but Adrian cut her off with a raised hand. "I understand perfectly. You underestimated her. You underestimated me, and most of all, you overestimated your control." Mira felt a surge of courage flow through her, something that had been dormant under years of scorn. Her voice, soft but firm, broke the silence. "It's over, Lana. Whatever you thought you could do to me, it's done, and you won't hurt me again." The words were simple, but they carried a power that silenced Lana. Guests who had gathered near the hallway, sensing the confrontation, now leaned in, captivated. The air was thick with anticipation. Like everyone was waiting for an inevitable collision. Adrian stepped closer to Mira, subtly shielding her from Lana's looming presence. "You've already proven who you are. You're stronger than her cruelty. Let her see it, and let everyone else see it too," he said. Lana's fists clenched at her sides. Her mind raced. How could a mere waitress command such authority? How could Adrian, her boyfriend, align himself so clearly with someone she deemed beneath her? Panic crept in. Her confidence, once unshakable, now wavered. "Adrian, she stammered, voice breaking for the first time. "You've said enough," he interrupted, his voice low and cutting. "Leave now." Mira's eyes widened. This was it. The moment of reckoning. The woman who had tormented her, humiliated her, tried to destroy her confidence, was being expelled by the very person who had power over her. Lana's head snapped up, her face red with fury and disbelief. But she saw the resolve in Adrian's eyes and the quiet strength radiating from Mira. She realized in that moment that no amount of rage or manipulation could undo what had been exposed tonight, the truth of who Mira was and the truth of who Lana had become. With a bitter, trembling hiss, Lana spun on her heel and stormed toward the exit. The guests whispered, eyes wide, some even clapping quietly in admiration of the dramatic confrontation. Mira's chest heaved, but she remained calm, absorbing the magnitude of the moment. Adrian turned to her, voice now gentle again. "You handled that with dignity. That's why you are here. That's why you will never be overlooked again." Mira's lips curved into a real smile for the first time in years. The weight of humiliation lifted. The path forward, once unclear and fraught with fear, now gleamed with possibility. Tonight had been a test, cruel, relentless, but Mira had emerged victorious. And for the first time, she felt the exhilarating power of her own worth, acknowledged and undeniable. The restaurant had quieted down, but the air still thrummed with energy. Guests whispered among themselves, replaying every moment of the confrontation, every flicker of tension, and the unexpected shift of power. Mira stood near the bar, straightening her uniform, her hands no longer trembling. She could feel the weight of eyes on her, not pitying, not judging, but seeing her. Truly seeing her. Adrian remained by her side, calm and composed. But his presence carried an unspoken assurance. Nothing would ever diminish her again. He caught her glance and offered a small, encouraging nod. "You did well," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You didn't let fear define you." Mira swallowed, the words resonating deep inside. She had survived Lana's cruelty before, silently enduring it for years, but this time felt different. This time, she had been witnessed not by strangers, not by bystanders, but by someone who mattered, someone whose acknowledgement could change everything. Meanwhile, Lana had retreated to a corner near the entrance, her designer bag clenched in white-knuckled hands. She cast furtive glances at Mira, a mixture of fury, disbelief, and grudging recognition flickering in her eyes. The truth had landed like a blow she couldn't deflect. And everyone around her could see it. Adrian's attention returned fully to Mira. "You've been underestimated all your life," he said softly. "People have assumed your place, your worth, your limits. But tonight, you showed them they were wrong. You showed me what you're capable of." Myra's heart raced. I just did what I had to," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, yet it carried a sense of conviction she had never let surface. "No." Adrian corrected gently. This was more than just enduring. This was strength, poise, and integrity under fire. You proved that cruelty and arrogance cannot define someone's value. The room seemed to shift around them, as though acknowledging the invisible boundary that had been redrawn. Guests who had laughed at Lana's antics now looked at her with measured eyes, the whispers of judgment circulating in subtle waves. The social hierarchy had realigned, and Mira had risen quietly but decisively to a new place of respect. Mira's eyes flickered toward the exit where Lana had disappeared. There was still tension there, still a potential threat. But for the first time, Mira didn't feel small or powerless. She had been tested, humiliated, and nearly broken, but she had endured with dignity and courage. Adrian's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, a grounding reassurance. "Tonight was just the beginning," he said. "People will see your worth, and they will respect it. And you will never doubt yourself again." Myra exhaled slowly, the pressure of the evening starting to lift. The humiliation, the fear, the quiet suffering that had followed her for years had all led to this moment. A moment of recognition, of empowerment, of silent triumph that spoke louder than any words ever could. And as she stood there, surrounded by the lingering tension, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the most devastating trials create the strongest victories. The room, once a stage of humiliation, had become a place of revelation. Mira had endured cruelty, but she had emerged not just unbroken, but unstoppable. The hum of the restaurant settled into a quieter rhythm, but the energy from the confrontation lingered like an electric current. Mira's mind raced, yet her chest felt lighter than it had in years. Every insult, every slight she had endured from Lana now seemed small, almost insignificant. What mattered was what she had proven tonight, not to Lana, not even to Adrian, but to herself. She was strong, resilient, and unshakable. Adrian's presence beside her was steady, reassuring, a constant reminder that her worth had finally been acknowledged. "You held yourself with dignity," he said softly, "when others would have crumbled. That matters more than anything." Myra swallowed, a mixture of relief and pride swelling in her chest. "I didn't expect," she began, but Adrian cut her off gently. "You didn't expect recognition," he said, "but you earned it. And now people see it too." Her gaze drifted toward Lana, who had been escorted to the far end of the restaurant by the staff. The arrogance and cruelty she had carried so proudly were now replaced with a quiet, bitter resignation. Mira allowed herself a small, calm smile. She had faced humiliation before, but never with such vindication. Tonight, The scales had shifted, and she had emerged not as a victim, but as a victor. Adrian's attention returned to her. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The strength you displayed tonight, it's rare. Most people let fear dictate their actions. You, however, have shown courage, composure, and intelligence under pressure. Remember this feeling." Mira nodded, taking in his words. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen, not just noticed, but respected. She realized that her patience, her quiet determination, her ability to rise above cruelty, these were not weaknesses. They were her greatest strengths. The murmurs of the guests slowly returned to normal, but their eyes lingered on her with admiration, a silent acknowledgement of the power she had displayed. People who had underestimated her now had to reconsider their assumptions. Mira felt a sense of calm authority settle over her, a quiet command that did not need to be spoken. Adrian gave her a final nod of approval, his gaze lingering with an unspoken promise of protection and support. "You will never have to endure such cruelty alone again," he said. "Not now, not ever." Mira exhaled, the tension melting away. The humiliation, the fear, the helplessness, night-knee. All of it had been transformed into strength, recognition, and empowerment. The lesson was clear. Those who try to diminish others often reveal their own weaknesses, while those who endure with grace rise above it, as she straightened her torn uniform. Smoothing the fabric as best she could, Mira realized that her life had changed, not because of Adrian's intervention, but because of the courage she had mustered. She had faced cruelty and had not broken. She had stood tall, and the world had seen it. The restaurant, once a stage of humiliation, had become a testament to her resilience. And as she looked around, she felt a profound sense of victory, not loud, not boisterous, but undeniable. Tonight, Mira had reclaimed her dignity. Tonight, she had discovered her strength. And from this moment forward, she knew that no one, not Lana, not anyone, could take that away from her. The next morning, the restaurant buzzed with subdued energy, as if the events of last night had left an invisible mark on every corner. Guests whispered to one another, some still replaying the dramatic confrontation between Adrian, Mira, and Lana. Staff moved carefully, some exchanging looks of quiet admiration for Mira, whose composure had shifted the entire dynamic of the establishment. She moved among them with calm efficiency, her back straight, her head held high, and a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before, even though the physical marks of last night's humiliation, the torn dress, the stain from the spilled drink had been cleaned and replaced. The emotional impact lingered, but now it carried a different weight. Mira walked through the halls, no longer burdened by shame or fear. She felt lighter, stronger, untouchable in a way she had never imagined. Every glance of respect from a guest, every nod from a coworker reminded her that she had survived, that she had conquered. Meanwhile, news of Lana's behavior had spread. Gossip travels fast in elite circles, and her arrogance, cruelty, and public humiliation of Mira had become the talk of the city's social scene. People who once admired her for her beauty and poise now whispered about her arrogance and lack of integrity. Her social image had begun to crack, and those cracks would widen with each retelling of the story. Adrian, observing quietly, noted the subtle changes in the room. He approached Mira, his presence grounding her as it had the night before. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Mira smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and empowerment shining in her eyes. "I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years," she admitted. "I never thought anyone would see me like this, truly see me." "That's because most people never look beyond what they think they know," Adrian said. "But strength like yours doesn't go unnoticed forever. And tonight, you've proven that character matters more than cruelty or wealth." She nodded, absorbing the truth of his words. The events of the past night had not only exposed Lana, but it also changed the way Mira viewed herself. She realized that her resilience, her integrity, her courage were her greatest assets far beyond the superficial judgments of anyone else. The fallout extended beyond the restaurant. The CEO, embarrassed by his girlfriend's behavior, began to reconsider the way he treated his employees. Staff felt the ripple effect of a newfound respect for Mira. And even guests seemed to treat her differently, more attentively, as if acknowledging the quiet power she carried. Lana, on the other hand, disappeared from the restaurant's social orbit. Invitations stopped coming, opportunities dried up, and her once intimidating presence now felt hollow. The arrogance that had defined her had crumbled, leaving her isolated and bitter. It's a stark contrast to the rising confidence of Mira. Mira walked through the emptying restaurant, her step steady, her head high. She had endured the storm, faced humiliation, and come out not broken, but transformed. Her dignity was intact, her self-worth undeniable. The experience had left scars, yes, but they were badges of strength rather than shame, and as she glanced at the evening sunlight spilling through the windows, illuminating the polished floors and the quiet corners she had once feared, Mira understood a profound truth. Cruelty may test a person, but resilience defines them. She had survived, endured, and risen, and nothing could ever take that from her. The fallout was complete. The balance restored, and Mira had claimed her place not as a victim, but as a woman who had proven that integrity and strength could overcome any adversity. The day settled into a calm rhythm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Mira stood near the entrance, watching as the last guests departed, their murmurs filled with admiration and astonishment. For the first time, she felt a sense of peace, a rare, deep satisfaction that came from knowing she had endured cruelty without losing herself. Every glance she received, every subtle nod of respect, was a reminder that she was no longer defined by the judgments of others. Adrian approached, a gentle smile on his face. "You handled everything with grace," he said. "Not everyone could have." Mira's lips curved into a soft smile. "I had no choice but to stay strong," she admitted. "But thank you for seeing me." He nodded. "Seeing you is just the beginning. You've shown courage, dignity, and strength tonight. Those qualities will carry you further than you imagine. Remember that?" Mira felt a warm determination rising in her chest. Her journey had been full of trials, humiliation, and doubt, but now she understood the value of resilience. The scars she carried were proof of her endurance, and the respect she had earned was a reminder that integrity always triumphs over cruelty. As she stepped outside, the city lights glinting off the glass and pavement, Mira felt lighter than ever. The world hadn't changed, but she had, and that made all the difference. She inhaled deeply, letting the cool night air fill her lungs. Tonight had tested her in ways she never imagined, but it had also revealed her true strength. She smiled, quietly, confidently, knowing that from this moment forward, she would face life with courage, dignity, and an unshakable belief in herself. No one could diminish her again, not Lana, not circumstance, not fear. Mira had reclaimed her power, her pride, and her future. And for the first time in her life, she knew she was unstoppable.